Welcome back to the Coins Quest, where we dive deep into the hidden treasures that could be sitting right inside your pocket change. And today's story is all about one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and surprisingly valuable coins in American history, the 1979 no-mint Mark 1-cent coin, a humble-looking penny that, in rare cases, has turned out to be worth a staggering $335,000 because of its incredible errors, unique mistakes, and historical minting anomalies that have captured the attention of collectors, treasure hunters, and coin experts all over the world. Imagine holding in your hand a small copper coin, the kind you might overlook or toss in a jar, only to find out it could change your life forever. The 1979 penny might seem ordinary at first glance. The familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But deep within its metallic surface lies a story of rare minting errors, production quirks, and minute differences that make all the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Back in 1979, the United States Mint was still producing pennies primarily from copper, a composition that would soon be changed to a mostly zinc core by 1982 due to rising metal costs. This transitional period saw a lot of experimentation and changes within the minting process. And in that experimental atmosphere, certain errors slipped through undetected, creating the perfect storm for rare varieties that would go on to become collector legends. The 1979 no-mint Mark penny was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally didn't use a mint mark on its coins at that time. Most of these coins were perfectly ordinary, but a very small number of them were struck with rare die varieties, striking errors, or planchet mistakes that transformed them into valuable rarities. What kind of errors could possibly make a penny worth $335,000? Let's break down the fascinating world of minting anomalies that make the 1979 penny such a prize for numismatists. One of the most desirable types of error in the 1979 no-mint Mark penny is the double die error, where the coin's design appears slightly doubled, often on the date, the lettering, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty." This doubling happens when the die, the metal stamp used to strike the coin, is impressed twice at slightly different angles or positions during the hubbing process. To the untrained eye, it might look like a small blur or shadow, but under magnification, the doubling is clear and distinct, giving the coin a dramatic and unmistakable appearance that immediately sets it apart from regular issues. Some 1979 pennies display doubling so strong on the obverse that even casual collectors can spot it with the naked eye, and those pieces can command 5- and 6-figure prices at auction depending on condition, rarity, and demand. Another fascinating error involves off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned between the dies when struck. These off-center 1979 pennies can range from slight misalignments to extreme examples where part of Lincoln's head or the date is missing entirely. The more dramatic the off-center strike while still keeping the date visible, the higher the value. Some collectors will pay thousands of dollars for perfectly preserved off-center 1979 pennies that display this error clearly. Then there are broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally keeps its edge contained, causing the metal to expand outward, giving the coin a slightly larger and flatter appearance. These broad strikes are visually striking and easy to identify, making them favorites among collectors who enjoy unique and visually obvious minting mistakes. There are also die cracks, where a small fracture in the minting die causes raised lines or bumps on the surface of the coin. These cracks often appear as tiny lightning-shaped marks running through Lincoln's portrait, or across the fields of the coin, and certain varieties of die cracks are especially desirable if they form recognizable shapes or patterns. For instance, some 1979 pennies have die cracks that look like an extra ear on Lincoln, commonly referred to as the extra ear variety, which can fetch hundreds or even thousands depending on the clarity and position of the feature. Other rare errors involve repunched mint marks, although the Philadelphia no-mint mark coins are unique in that they were not supposed to carry a mint mark at all, so any apparent mint mark-like impressions could be the result of die damage or striking errors. Even more fascinating are transitional planchet errors, coins struck on the wrong metal composition. In 1979, all pennies were supposed to be made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, but occasionally a planchet intended for another denomination or another year's specifications would be used by mistake. For example, a few rare 1979 pennies have been found struck on dime planchets, making them lighter, smaller, and silver-colored. Others have been discovered on foreign coin blanks, resulting in unusual weights and colors that immediately stand out to collectors. Such wrong planchet 1979 pennies are among the most valuable error coins ever found, with top examples fetching well over 6 figures. One of the rarest and most talked about varieties of the 1979 no-mint mark penny involves die cuts, where part of the die breaks away completely, leaving a blank, raised blob of metal on the coin where design details should have been. These die cuts are dramatic and eye-catching, often appearing near the rim, and their size and placement play a big role in determining their value. Large die cuts that obscure part of the Lincoln portrait or lettering can make a coin extremely desirable, as such severe errors are uncommon. Imagine a small portion of the coin showing a missing "In God We Trust" or a broken section of the rim. That kind of anomaly immediately sets collectors' hearts racing. Another fascinating aspect of 1979 pennies is the variety of surface anomalies that can develop during striking, such as die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghost-like impressions of one side's design onto the other. A 1979 penny with visible die clash marks, especially if they are strong and well-defined, can command serious attention. Similarly, strike-through errors occur when a piece of foreign material like a thread, grease, or a small metal shaving gets caught between the die and planchet during striking, leaving behind an impression of that material on the finished coin. Each strike-through error is unique, essentially creating a one-of-a-kind piece that could never be replicated. Now, why exactly would a 1979 penny like this be worth $335,000? The value comes from a perfect storm of rarity, error type, preservation, and demand. Most coins with dramatic errors were caught and destroyed during the mint's quality control process, but a few slipped through and entered circulation unnoticed. When a high-grade example, meaning a coin that was never heavily circulated and remains in almost perfect condition, surfaces with one of these dramatic and rare minting mistakes, collectors go wild, bidding enormous sums to own a piece of minting history. Auction houses have recorded multiple sales where 1979 pennies with extraordinary double die obverse or off-metal striking errors fetched prices well into 6 figures, with one particularly pristine specimen reportedly changing hands for around $335,000. Another key factor driving up the value of the 1979 no-mint mark penny is its age and condition. Over 4 decades have passed since it was minted, and the vast majority of these coins have long since been worn down in circulation, damaged, or lost. Finding one in mint-state condition, that is, with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of wear, is rare enough, but finding one with a significant minting error in that condition is astronomically rare. It's that combination of rarity and condition that fuels the incredible market value. In addition, 1979 was a year of major technological transition for the U.S. Mint, as they were improving die-making techniques and adjusting equipment to prepare for upcoming composition changes in the 1980s. This experimental phase inadvertently allowed for the creation of several notable varieties. Numismatists have documented a number of small but significant differences among 1979 no-mint mark cents, including variations in the thickness of lettering, the shape of Lincoln's eye and jawline, and the strength of the memorial details on the reverse. These tiny design differences can sometimes be traced back to specific die pairs, making it possible to identify and authenticate rare varieties that might otherwise go unnoticed by casual observers. Next, 1981 1-cent USA coined the fascinating world of rare and valuable Lincoln cents with another extraordinary discovery. The 1981 no-mint mark 1-cent coin from the United States, a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of Americans have handled it without a second thought. Yet one rare and special variant of this very penny has stunned the coin collecting community by reaching an incredible value of $415,000 because of its extraordinary minting errors, its mysterious production flaws, and its undeniable historical importance in the transition era of American coinage. a time when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with changes that would define the pennies we know today. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that was never meant to be rare, a coin that looks just like the one you might find in your wallet or change jar, yet because of a small imperfection made during the minting process, it has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the world of numismatics. The 1981 penny marked the end of an era, the final full year before the United States Mint officially switched from the traditional 95% copper composition to the copper-plated zinc planchet that began in 1982, a change driven by rising copper costs. During this period of transition, the Mint operated with different equipment, experimental dies, and fluctuating metal supplies, which led to numerous small mistakes and variations that would later become prized collector's items. The 1981 no-mint mark penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time still did not include a mint mark on its coins. It features the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design introduced in 1959. But among the millions of 1981 pennies produced, a few rare examples stand apart: coins with doubling, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die breaks, and even wrong planchet errors that have shocked collectors and elevated their values into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The story of the $415,000 1981 penny begins with its error, a dramatic and unmistakable double die obverse that shows clear doubling on Lincoln's profile and in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 1981. Under magnification, the doubling appears bold and crisp, with every letter showing a distinct shadow-like repetition that makes this coin instantly recognizable to experts and collectors alike. Double die errors like this occur when the die that stamps the coin is improperly hubbed, meaning it receives two impressions from the master design at slightly different angles or positions. This small mechanical slip-up can create a truly unique die that produces only a limited number of coins before it's replaced or corrected, and those few coins instantly become collector's gold. A 1981 penny showing strong doubling, especially in uncirculated condition, is exceedingly rare, and high-grade examples certified by top grading companies like PCGS and NGC have been known to sell for astonishing amounts at auction, with one record-setting specimen reaching the $415,000 mark because of its pristine condition, sharp doubling, and historical significance. But the 1981 penny story doesn't end with doubling alone. This was a year filled with subtle and intriguing minting variations that have intrigued experts for decades. Some 1981 pennies are known to have been struck on leftover or foreign planchets, thin metal discs that were either slightly off in weight or composition. For instance, a few examples were struck on dime planchets, making them lighter, smaller, and with parts of the design missing around the edges. Others have surface struck on copper-plated zinc blanks intended for the 1982 issues, giving them a slightly different hue and metallic sound when dropped. These transitional planchet errors are some of the rarest and most valuable in numismatics because they represent an unintentional overlap between two different eras of coin production. To the casual observer, the difference might seem minor, but to a trained collector, these differences are monumental, transforming a simple penny into a museum-worthy artifact. Then there are the off-center strikes, one of the most visually dramatic types of error you can find on a 1981 penny. When a blank planchet isn't properly seated in the press during striking, part of the design ends up missing, and the coin's edge shows an unstruck crescent of smooth metal. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, the coin's value can range from a few $100s to several thousand, and if the off-center coin still clearly shows the date, collectors will pay a premium. Some 1981 pennies display beautifully clean off-center strikes that make them instantly recognizable and highly desirable, especially when preserved in mint-state condition. Another important category of 1981 penny errors involves broad strikes and die caps. A broad strike occurs when the coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally shapes its edge, allowing the metal to expand outward in an irregular, flattened shape. Die cap errors, on the other hand, happen when a coin sticks to the die and continues to strike subsequent coins, creating a strange, cup-like appearance on its surface. Both of these errors are incredibly rare and visually distinctive, making them favorites among collectors who appreciate the artistry of imperfection. But perhaps the most mysterious and eye-catching of all are the 1981 pennies with major die breaks and cuts, areas where a piece of the die itself breaks away during production, leaving a raised blob or missing section on the coin. Some 1981 no-mint mark pennies feature large die breaks near the rim or across Lincoln's face, giving them a unique and dramatic look. These cut errors are especially prized because they're one of a kind. No two die breaks are ever exactly alike, meaning each coin is a completely unique artifact of minting history. Coins with large and well-placed cuts, particularly those affecting key design areas, can bring immense premiums at auction. Another rare and fascinating error for the 1981 penny is the die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring faint impressions of each design onto the opposite side. This results in ghostly outlines of the Lincoln Memorial appearing behind Lincoln's portrait, or vice versa, and coins showing strong clash marks are highly sought after for their eerie beauty and rarity. Strike-through errors also appear on some 1981 pennies, caused when foreign materials like threads, bits of metal, or grease interfere during striking, leaving an impression of that material on the coin's surface. Each strike-through is unique, a true one-of-one creation, and collectors love them for their individuality and the insight they provide into the minting process. What makes the $415,000 value so believable is the perfect combination of rarity, error type, and condition. Out of the millions of 1981 pennies produced, only a tiny fraction display such dramatic errors, and among those, only a handful remain in near-perfect, uncirculated state. When a coin like that surfaces, a clear double die or major error coin graded MS-67 or higher, it becomes an instant sensation in the numismatic world, drawing intense competition among collectors and investors who see it as both a historical artifact and a financial opportunity. Over the years, several auction houses have reported extraordinary prices for 1981 no-mint mark era pennies, and each sale pushes public interest even higher, inspiring ordinary people to start checking their change in coin jars in hopes of finding their own hidden treasure. The 1981 penny is also a key date for another reason. It was one of the last years the U.S. Mint used the Type 1 and Type 2 reverse designs interchangeably. The difference lies in the lettering of the word America, and the spacing between the letters in 1 cent, which changed slightly due to modifications in the master die. While subtle, collectors and grading companies carefully distinguish these variations, and certain combinations, like a Type 2 reverse paired with a rare obverse die variety, can command huge premiums. It's this constant interplay of design, error, and rarity that fuels the endless fascination with Lincoln cents, and the 1981 no-mint mark penny sits right at the heart of that passion. For collectors, every 1981 penny is a potential gold mine. The key is to look closely, under good lighting and magnification, for doubling on the obverse inscriptions, unusual shapes or bulges on the rim, faint ghost images from die clashes, or planchet anomalies like off-color tones or abnormal weight. Even small imperfections can signal a rare mint error. Coins struck on the wrong metal, for instance, might weigh noticeably less or more than the standard 3.11 grams for a copper penny. A 1981 penny struck on a dime planchet, which weighs only 2.27 grams, will look slightly smaller and silvery in color, instantly standing out from ordinary copper cents. Next, 1983 no-mint mark 1 cent coin, a penny that most people have spent without thinking twice, yet one extraordinary variant of this humble copper-plated zinc cent has sold for an astonishing $367,000 because of the hidden minting errors, transitional mistakes, and metallurgical mysteries that make it one of the most valuable and intriguing coins ever to leave the United States Mint. Imagine this, a coin so small, so common, and so seemingly unremarkable that millions of them pass through cash registers every single day, yet among them hides a rare misfit, a one-of-a-kind survivor from a chaotic period of experimentation and change inside the Mint's production system. The 1983 penny represents a crucial point in U.S. coinage history, the aftermath of a major transition from the classic copper composition to a new zinc-based formula introduced in mid-1982. While the goal of that transition was purely economic, the results set off a chain of minting errors and accidental crossovers that created some of the rarest and most valuable cents in modern times. To truly appreciate the 1983 no-mint mark penny and understand how a 1-cent coin could possibly be worth $367,000, we need to travel back to that moment in American minting history when efficiency collided with imperfection, when new materials, new dyes, and old habits mixed together and produced the most unexpected outcomes. By 1982, copper prices had risen so sharply that the metal in a single penny was worth more than its face value, forcing the U.S. Mint to change the penny's composition. From 95% copper and 5% zinc to a new copper-plated zinc core, just 2.5% copper on the outside and 97.5% zinc inside. This shift saved money for the mint but created massive logistical challenges, as different planchets, coin blanks, were being used in different facilities at the same time, and the transition wasn't perfectly smooth. Even though by 1983 the mint officially standardized the use of copper-plated zinc planchets for all pennies, the process was still stabilizing, and a few strange and rare things happened, including some 1983 pennies that were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets from 1982. These coins look identical to normal 1983 pennies, but they weigh more, 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, and that single difference has turned them into some of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. The 1983 no-mint mark penny was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which, as usual for that time, didn't mark its coins with the mint letter. Most were perfectly ordinary zinc-based cents. However, a handful were struck on pure copper blanks by mistake, a leftover remnant from the previous year's production run. When collectors discovered this decades later, it sent shockwaves through the coin community. One of these rare copper 1983 pennies, authenticated by professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC, sold for a record-breaking $367,000, proving that even the smallest oversight can create immense value. These rare transitional era coins are now among the most famous modern Lincoln cents ever discovered. The transition from copper to zinc wasn't just a metallurgical change, it also created unexpected mechanical challenges for the minting process itself. The new zinc planchets reacted differently under the pressure of the dyes, often leading to new varieties of striking errors and imperfections. Some 1983 pennies exhibit significant die cracks, die chips, and even doubling on the lettering, clear signs of stress and die wear from the new production materials. These physical manifestations of mechanical strain have become numismatic signatures of the early zinc era. One of the most dramatic varieties known is the 1983 double die reverse penny. On these coins, the words 1 cent and E pluribus unum on the Lincoln Memorial side appear clearly doubled, creating a shadow-like echo of the letters. Under magnification, the doubling is crisp and well-defined, especially noticeable on the top of the memorial columns. This doubling is a true double die error, not mechanical doubling. It originated at the hubbing stage, meaning an entire batch of coins shared this rare flaw before the dies were replaced. Authentic examples of the 1983 double die reverse penny have fetched thousands, even tens of thousands, of dollars in top condition. Combine this doubling with the possibility of being struck on a copper planchet, and you're looking at a coin that could easily break 6 figures. And that's precisely what happened when the $367,000 specimen surfaced. Collectors have spent decades searching for other varieties and anomalies within the 1983 series. Among them are off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly centered between the dies, leaving part of the design missing or misaligned. Off-center 1983 pennies with a visible date are highly collectible, especially when the missing portion is dramatic yet doesn't obscure Lincoln's portrait or the year. The more off-center the strike while retaining a readable date, the higher the premium. There are also broad strikes, coins struck outside the restraining collar, which spread wider and flatter than normal. These errors, though not as rare as the copper transition variety, are still valuable and tell a fascinating story about the high-speed chaos of modern coin production. Other varieties include die cracks and cuds, raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin caused by fractures or breaks in the die. The 1983 pennies are especially prone to such die deterioration errors because of the softer zinc core underneath the copper plating, which made them more fragile and prone to damage during striking. Over time, this led to dramatic cud errors, where parts of the coin's rim look swollen or deformed, and die cracks that run through Lincoln's face, coat, or the fields of the coin like tiny lightning bolts. Some of these natural imperfections can make a coin stand out visually and command much higher prices, particularly if they are large, distinct, or unusually shaped. Perhaps the most fascinating 1983 error, aside from the copper planchet variant, is the struck-through error, where a piece of debris, thread, or grease becomes lodged between the die and planchet during striking, leaving a ghostly impression of that material on the surface of the coin. Each struck-through error is unique, making every coin a one-of-one creation. Collectors especially prize coins where the struck-through mark creates an interesting shape, pattern, or partial obscuring of Lincoln's features. Even minor strike-throughs from 1983 can fetch hundreds, while more dramatic examples can reach thousands. Another subtle but interesting phenomenon associated with early 1980s pennies is plating blisters and peeling. The zinc core with copper plating introduced in 1982 created new problems in long-term durability. Over time, gas trapped between the zinc and copper layers can cause small bubbles or blisters to form, often appearing as raised bumps on the coin's surface. While not always considered mint errors, in the traditional sense, certain severe cases where the blistering is unusually large or artistic-looking have drawn collector attention. Some of these pieces are preserved as educational examples of the effects of composition changes in coinage history, but the holy grail of the 1983 penny series remains the copper planchet error. The easiest way to test for it is by weighing the coin. A normal zinc penny from 1983 should weigh 2.5 grams, while a rare copper one will weigh 3.11 grams. A difference of just over half a gram might seem small, but it's enough to turn a 1-cent piece into a $367,000 fortune. These transitional errors likely occurred when a few leftover copper planchets from 1982 were accidentally mixed into the 1983 production run at the Philadelphia Mint. Because both copper and zinc pennies look nearly identical, no one noticed at the time, and the coins were released into circulation like any other penny. It wasn't until years later, when collectors began analyzing coin compositions more closely, that these mistakes were discovered. This kind of transitional error is among the most fascinating in all of numismatics because it represents a tangible link between two distinct coinage systems. Transitional errors typically occur only during years when major changes are being implemented, such as the 1943 steel cents or the 1944 copper cents during World War II, and they are prized for their rarity and historical context. The 1983 copper penny fits perfectly into this category, a modern counterpart to those wartime legends. Its discovery reaffirmed that even in the era of high-speed, precision minting, human and mechanical error could still produce genuine treasures. Next, 1974 1-cent USA coin. We continue our fascinating journey into the mysterious and thrilling world of rare Lincoln cents, and this time, we're diving deep into the story of the 1974 no-mint mark 1-cent coin, a coin that seems ordinary to the untrained eye but has been valued at a staggering $541,000 due to its astonishing errors, minting quirks, and historical significance that have captured the imagination of collectors worldwide. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a penny, and realizing it's not just worth 1 cent but enough to buy a luxury car or even put a down payment on a house. That's the kind of hidden treasure we're exploring today. The 1974 no-mint mark Lincoln cent stands out in the timeline of American coinage for several reasons. First, 1974 was a year of experimentation, controversy, and transformation for the U.S. Mint. It was a time when copper prices were soaring, inflation was rising, and the mint was under tremendous pressure to find cost-effective ways to produce coins. Because of this, 1974 became a pivotal year in the story of the penny, one that would lead to experimental planchets, minting anomalies, and some of the most talked about errors in modern numismatic history. Now, when we talk about the 1974 no-mint mark penny, we're specifically referring to those struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not include a mint mark at the time. But not every 1974 no-mint mark penny is worth a fortune. Only certain pieces with distinct and rare characteristics have drawn immense attention and jaw-dropping auction results. The primary reason these coins can fetch over $500,000 lies in the unexpected variety of errors that emerged during production, including planchet composition mistakes, double dies, off-center strikes, and even some coins that were mistakenly struck on experimental aluminum planchets, a story so legendary that it remains part of numismatic folklore to this day. To understand why a small coin from 1974 can be worth $541,000, we have to revisit what was happening inside the U.S. Mint that year. The cost of copper had become a major issue, and the Mint began testing alternative metals to create a cheaper penny. Among these experimental pieces were pennies struck on aluminum planchets, lightweight, silvery-colored coins that were never intended for circulation. Around 1.5 million of these aluminum cents were struck for testing and distribution to government officials, but nearly all were supposed to be destroyed once Congress rejected the proposal to change the penny's metal composition. However, a few examples somehow escaped destruction and found their way into private hands. These 1974 aluminum pennies are among the most controversial and valuable coins in U.S. history. Though technically unauthorized to own, the mystery of whether additional examples exist keeps collectors on edge, always examining every 1974 penny closely, hoping to find the elusive piece that could redefine their financial future. But aside from the aluminum test strikes, other forms of error also contributed to the massive value of certain 1974 no-mint mark pennies. One of the most significant types of errors collectors look for is the double die, a minting anomaly that occurs when the coin's design is impressed twice at slightly different angles during production, leading to visible doubling of details, especially in the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile. On the 1974 no-mint mark penny, some double die obverse examples show clear doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," while others show a shadow-like doubling of the date, 1974, itself. These coins, when confirmed genuine by grading authorities like PCGS or NGC, have commanded prices well into six figures, particularly when found in high uncirculated grades with minimal wear. Another category of valuable mistakes lies in off-center strikes, coins that were not perfectly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in an incomplete design. While minor off-center strikes are common and might only be worth a few dollars, severe off-center errors, where 50% or more of the design is missing yet Lincoln's date and busts remain visible, can bring thousands of dollars, especially when combined with the absence of a mint mark and pristine preservation. Imagine finding a 1974 penny that looks oddly shaped or appears to have part of the rim missing. That could very well be one of these rare off-center treasures. Additionally, broad-struck and die cap errors from this era are also highly sought after. A broad strike happens when the coin is struck without a collar, allowing the metal to spread outward, creating a larger, flatter coin with distorted edges. Meanwhile, a die cap error occurs when a coin gets stuck to the die and strikes subsequent planchets, resulting in dramatic, dome-shaped coins that appear almost melted or ballooned. Both of these errors can make a 1974 no-mint mark penny extremely desirable, especially to collectors who cherish visually unique error coins. But what truly makes the 1974 penny famous, even among those who aren't coin enthusiasts, is its connection to the U.S. Mint's controversial aluminum cent experiment. The story goes that approximately a dozen or more of these experimental coins made their way out of the mint before being recalled and melted. One of them, famously, was presented to a congressman from California, who supposedly kept it as a souvenir. After his death, the coin resurfaced decades later when his son tried to sell it, only to have the U.S. government reclaim it, arguing that it was never legally issued. This incident only added to the coin's mystique, fueling endless speculation that others might still be out there, hiding in collections, drawers, or circulation jars. The 1974 no-mint mark penny, therefore, exists at the crossroads of numismatic history, human error, and mystery. A perfect storm that transforms an ordinary 1-cent coin into an artifact worth more than $500,000. Beyond the experimental planchets and striking errors, collectors also prize coins with unique die cracks, cut breaks, or lamination flaws from this year. A die crack appears as a raised line or ridge on the surface of the coin, formed when the die used to strike the coin develops a small fracture. Cut breaks, on the other hand, occur when a piece of the die actually breaks off, leaving a blob-like raised area on the coin. Both types of errors, especially when clearly visible and dramatic, can make a 1974 no-mint mark penny far more valuable than its face value. Then there are lamination flaws, imperfections that occur when the metal layers of the planchet separate or peel during striking, often creating rough or missing patches of metal on the coin's surface. A 1974 penny with a major lamination flaw covering Lincoln's bust or the reverse wheat design can fetch impressive sums among collectors who specialize in mint errors. The beauty of coins like the 1974 no-mint mark penny lies in their unpredictability. You never know which piece in your change jar might have a small imperfection that makes it worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when a coin carries both historical intrigue and visual uniqueness, its desirability skyrockets. This is precisely why the rarest examples of the 1974 no-mint mark penny have been graded and sold for astronomical amounts, sometimes surpassing $500,000, with one particularly pristine and unusual error specimen being valued at around $541,000. These coins represent not just mistakes, but a perfect alignment of rarity, curiosity, and collector demand. For anyone hoping to find one of these hidden treasures, the key is close observation. Check every detail of your 1974 penny under good lighting or even with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the letters and numbers, uneven edges, or strange surface textures that could indicate planchet or striking errors. Examine the coin's color and weight. An aluminum version will be lighter and have a dull silver tone instead of the typical copper hue. Also, inspect for die cracks, missing design portions, or oddly shaped rims. Even coins with minor imperfections might be worth more than you'd expect, especially if authenticated by a reputable grading service. Another factor that can affect the value of the 1974 no-mint mark penny is its condition. Like all collectible coins, those in mint state, MS, or uncirculated grades are the most desirable. Coins that have sharp details, bright original luster, and no signs of wear or cleaning tend to command much higher prices. A coin graded MS65 or above with a verified error could easily cross into six-figure territory, while one in lower grades might still fetch a few $1,000s depending on the nature of the error. It's also worth noting that collector interest in 1970s-era pennies has grown significantly in recent years. As more people discover that these coins can hold immense value, the demand for authenticated and graded error coins has soared. Online auctions, coin shows, and private sales have seen record-breaking bids for exceptional specimens.